and get started. Today we have JavaScript functions. Another huge topic, another huge and fundamental topic. I think we'll take a look at the workshop today. It's going to be very similar to yesterday. You're going to make a clone of the following website that has different functionality. Some is going to be like kind of your warm up. A lot of these are pretty simple actually. And then some of them are more difficult. So just like yesterday, a prompt, I forgot to put the options. I should put that though. I'll probably modify it. But one of our options to run is sum, right? And this is going to ask us for two numbers. So 1 and 3. And then it tells us 4. So it's going to feel similar to yesterday, although, and I'll let you play with the rest of them. It's gonna be a very similar flow. So similar to yesterday, but your code is going to be structured very differently. We're going to hopefully use JavaScript functions. So what is a function? What did you learn from pre-work? What are JavaScript functions? Ryan, any ideas there?
Yes, they're reusable blocks of code.
Yeah, that's the key word right there. Use reusable blocks of code. However, we've already seen that. We saw that yesterday, right? Loops were our reusable, repeatable. I don't know about reusable. So maybe a little different there. But anyway, it was blocks of code that got repeated again and again. But what's the difference between loops and functions, Sydney? What's a big distinction?
The loops keep looping until you break until you break the loop. But like a function, like you have to invoke it and run it.
Function you have to invoke. Yep. There's another pretty important difference though. Monica, what's your guess?
I don't know, you can call the function like whenever you need it.
Yeah, so that's going to be the invoking part. So we call it, opens the class. What makes functions very unique from loops? There's more going on than just repeating blocks of code with a function.
It's like storing it in memory. Like functions, you're like storing some code in memory to be able to be reused later versus like conditional or like if statements, right? Or blocks of code.
Yeah, there's probably those variables are probably saved for later if they're referenced. Yep. What else though?
You can change or interact with multiple lines of JavaScript code by just interacting with one single line.
I think we could do that from a loop though, within the block of code from either a function or a loop.
You can give them parameters.
Yeah, we have inputs and outputs. So optionally, we have inputs and outputs. So that's going to be what I think is a really important distinction. So let's do a warm up, right? You guys all got here on time, I think. Maybe we're missing one right now. So I want to greet you, right? So I want to greet you by outputting to the console. Hi, student. I hope you have a productive day, right? And I'm going to run this live server. And that's great. That works, right? But I have right now 22 of you. So how can I I need to greet each one of you to be polite. How can I repeat this message 22 times? Alexander.
Well, you could use a loop, but if you're using a function,
Yeah, let's warm up. Let's do a loop. Whatever you want. Yeah. Let's warm up with a loop.
not in the swing of things.
What's
yet,
the first
still thinking,
word? What's the first
four.
word?
Unless
Yeah,
you're using
there
a
we go.
while loop.
We could, but probably not. Okay, we got the first word. What comes next, Jazz?
The next one is you're gonna initialize the index of the loop. So
Yeah,
I
so-
equals, you're gonna start at 0.
Yeah, we'll start at 0 unless we have a reason not to. So I said I have 22 students right now. Victor, what comes next in our for loop if I want this to run 22 times?
I is equal or greater to 22.
Okay. We might have to come back to that. What comes next, Hara?
I plus plus. The iteration
Yeah, so we're
by
going to
one.
increment I by 1 each time. So now before I press save, I'm going to get an infinite loop. But why am I going to get an infinite loop, Aaron?
You didn't define it? What you want it to do?
No, that's fine. The code block can be empty. The code doesn't care. But I am going to get an infinite loop because of line 12.
Did you define length? Or do the length?
Nope, didn't define length, but don't have to. What's on our very first iteration? What happens first, Aaron?
I equals 0.
Yeah, and then where does it go?
Just telling the system is greater than 22.
So is 0 greater than 22?
0 is greater than 22. Or no, 22 is greater than 0.
Yeah. So this is false. And then it exits the loop. So I was wrong. This isn't an infinite loop. This is a broken loop. I got confused. But we still have a bug nonetheless. So because our code is never going to run. So how can we adjust?
Then
Yeah. And we actually don't want less than or equal to because we started at what?
0.
If we started at 1, then we would do less than or equal to. So now this should run how many times? What will I see in the console there for a sanity check, David? What numbers?
You will see 0 through 22. I'm sorry. 0 through 21.
21. There we go. Yep. And that is 22 loops. Yep. So that's a little refresher of day 1, which is fine, right? And this will work. I can put this in here. And it did my objective. But I want to get a little bit fancier. I want to say hi to your actual name. I want to say hi to your actual name. So I'm going to need a function in this case. How can I make a function that outputs to the console a greeting based on the name that was inputted?
Function say word.
Function say word. We can do better than say word. What are we doing?
You're greeting people.
Yeah. And then what comes next, Aaron, for a function?
You have to put it in parentheses and then which
Let's
one?
pause there, though. We have parentheses, and what optionally goes in the parentheses?
What you want to say or what your greeting is going to be, right?
Yeah, so this is our inputs, but what's the formal name for our inputs, Renata, when we're defining a function?
Parameter?
Yeah. Is our parameters. Parameters.
I have kind of a dumb question.
Sure, yeah.
So do you write the functions in the HTML, right? Not Java, is it you write it in JavaScript?
We're in JavaScript, yeah.
Okay.
If you wanted to write it in HTML, you would need a script tag, but that would still be JavaScript, really. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so let's pause. So we have the name for our fancy inputs are called parameters. Do we need... Well, let's actually come back to that in a second. Let's just do the very bare bones. So I'm going to take this console.log and just copy it. Now, this always... I always stress this because this always screwed me up when I was learning functions for the first time. Are we defining a function right now or invoking a function, Yang?
We define.
Right. Yeah. Right now we're just defining a function.
Not quite yet.
So the question is, Gang, when I press save, will I see anything in my console? No, you might have froze up on us. Oh, there you go. So will this run when I save my code? I think you're breaking up on us.
You can hear me now?
I can hear you now, yeah. So the question was, when I press save, just defining a function, does that automatically run it?
No.
No.
We need to call it. Yeah.
So if we want it to run it, we need to call or invoke the function. So how can we do that, Zach, this greet function? I actually want to run it now.
Would you type the word greet with parentheses?
Perfect. Yeah. Now I save this and it actually runs. So pay attention to this distinction. Maybe I was just weird, but especially when we get to arrow functions, this becomes a little murky. So when you're defining a function, it's very different than invoking a function. Okay, but we said the cool thing about functions are we optionally have parameters, our inputs. So for this one, I don't want hi student. I want hi Ronald. So here you see in the console, it's hi blank. I really want hi Ronald. So what has to change to be able to accept an input to my function here? What do we have to do in the parentheses, Ronald?
You can give a label or some
Yeah.
kind of variable for the
Yeah.
parameter.
So what's a good label for a student's name?
I think name sounds good.
Name sounds good to me too. Okay. So now we're basically saying when we're defining this function, we're saying it can accept an input and I'm going to call that input name, whatever you pass into me. Well, now the question is, well, how do we pass in an input? And we only pass in inputs. We only pass in inputs when we invoke. So right here. So how can we actually pass in an input? I want to pass in the name Lizzie. How can I do that, Lizzie?
Would you put name right there?
I wouldn't put name. Why wouldn't I put name? Because we're going to get an error that name. I guess we're not. Okay. But anyway. Yeah, so I thought we'd get an error that says name isn't defined because it's not. So we don't use name there. I'm surprised it's not an error, actually. Yeah,
Zach. I've got a name in the console log.
Do we have name in the console log? We will eventually, but right now I'm saying I want to actually pass in the string Lizzie when I invoke this function.
So you just put the string there of whatever you want to pass, and that'll be the argument.
Exactly, yeah. So directly right here, we can just put Lizzie. Now that's how we pass in the actual arguments when we're invoking a function. But now I still don't see hi Lizzie. But in here, now by magic, if I console.log name, what will I see? Kevin.
You'll see the hi Lizzie. I hope you have a productive day.
No, I won't see that yet. We have more work to do.
I think you're gonna see only Lucy. Lucy.
I'll see Lizzie, and then I'll see the hi blank. I hope you have a productive day. See that? So it's as if someone came in here and wrote let name equal Lizzie, but that happened behind the scenes automatically for us just because of how we defined our function and then passed in an argument. So now there's only one word we need to do our objective here. And what is that one word, Roman?
You can just add name, the variable name.
Correct.
There.
So we add the variable name here because name exists within this scope, within these curly braces. So we have access to it. And then we go, hi, Lizzie, I hope you have a productive day, which is awesome, right? And we talked about how functions are reusable. So I have, now I have 23 of you. Someone was late, but that's okay. So now I want to greet Ryan. The cool thing that I defined this function, what can I do now to get a greeting to Ryan going? Alex.
You're gonna put Ryan in the greet.
Yeah. So this is cool, right? I can just put Ryan directly. Or a lot of the times you'll have a variable that's holding a value like we do. And then instead of directly passing the string literal, what could I pass here to accomplish the same thing, Francis?
Student.
Yep. So this is important though. When it's being invoked and passed in here, it's called an argument. And when it's being defined here, it's called a parameter. And that vocabulary is going to be very important.
Sorry, could you say that one more time?
Yeah. They're both kind of inputs to the function, but when we're defining it here, the input is referred to as a parameter. When we're invoking the function or running it, the input is referred to as an argument. What questions do you have on the very basics of functions?
Hey Max, I've got a question.
Yeah.
If you define the function after you invoke it, will it still work in JavaScript?
Yes, because we're using a function declaration, which hoists. So David's question is, if we basically move this down, will it still work? And from what you've learned right now, you should actually, your intuition should say it won't, right? Because I told you how code is synchronous. And when it gets here, it should say an error that it's not defined. but it actually still will work because of the nature of JavaScript and the nature of this category of function is called a function declaration. It's as if this gets hoisted to the top. It's not literally what happens, but it's a good mental model.
Max,
This
I
is
had a question. For the
yeah.
previous thing. And when you type name, I think name, if you just type name, I think it will create a variable kind of like bar or something, and then it'll put it on the global namespace or something like that. So is there a way
Yeah,
that
to me that's bizarre that works.
yeah, window object or window global object. I think it's on that object after
Well, it's saying that name is an empty string. I honestly don't know why that's working. I have to either think about that or yeah, I'm surprised that that's functioning. So I'll need to research it a bit offline. But you're not going to rely on this kind of functionality, at least in any normal way I can think of. Yeah.
So Max, I've got another question. When
Sure.
writing your function definitions,
yes,
where should we be? Should that all be grouped together? Like all your functions should be grouped together somewhere in the code? Is it at the top? Is it at the bottom? What's the best practice for that?
I group mine together, yeah, and I usually at the top. But there's not a definite answer on that. And in React, everything is mixed up together, so good luck trying to do that. But yeah. Okay, so let's up the game a little bit. Let's introduce a second argument and parameter, I guess I should say. So I also want to make sure I'm reminding the student how many absences they have, right? So they definitely graduate. You are currently at blank. And then I want to say like absences here. I want this to say absences. How can we change this function definition to account for absences as well for each student? So how can we modify this? Francis?
In
How can
in the parameter part, do comma num absences or something like that.
Sure.
And then yeah, there do plus num absences plus quotations absences.
Yeah. And I screwed something up. Oh, this period. Okay. So, this is interesting too. So do you see how on line 28 we're passing in, let me simplify this too, and just directly pass in the argument. So do you see how it works for, well, let's just do one as well. So it works for Lizzie's name, but then we get undefined for absences. Why are we seeing undefined for absences, Rodrigo?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Ketzerin?
Because we didn't call it.
Well, we did call it. We're calling the function on line 25, greet.
Yeah,
but what are we
didn't-
not
we-
passing
we
in?
We didn't passing the num absent yet.
So let's
we
assume.
we only
Let's
call
assume.
Ruth's name.
Yeah, let's assume Lizzie has 0 absences. How can we add that here?
Comma and code.
Code?
No, the I think num absent. I think.
No, so not num absences. That's the name of the parameter. And your name of the parameter should never be the same as your name of your argument. I mean, sometimes it's kind of unavoidable, but
How about
usually it shouldn't
zero?
be. Yeah, we're just going to directly put the number 0. And again, we could do this, and you will see this too, but I'm just trying to simplify it as much as possible for now. All right, any questions on that? So now we have multiple parameters, which is fine. We can have as many as we want.
Yeah, Max, when you declare your, when you pass in your arguments, or actually
Yes.
when you declare in your definition, your function definitions, your parameters.
Parameters.
You give them default values.
Sure. Yeah. So by default, we could say, this is a little advanced for where we're at right now, but we could, if we said 0 here, because on day 1, everyone hopefully has 0 absences, what will we see in the console now?
I'm guessing 0 absences.
Yeah, hopefully, if I did this correctly. So we'll still see 0, but before, when we didn't pass in an argument for absences, we saw undefined. So we do have that nice little option. You're not going to use this terribly often, but you will use it sometimes. I think other languages do that more often, right? I'm not sure, but I think they might. All right, so let's continue on with our next challenge. So yesterday, the concept of truthy or falsy was really important, right? And it's going to continue to be. So who can remind me what truthy or falsy means? Sarthak? What is truthy or falsy?
Truthy, falsy refers to the values that will assign to false.
Yeah, so every value that's not a Boolean can be coerced to be a Boolean and will be true or false. So I have a mystery value here that right now is going to be 345, but it could be anything. I want this application that I'm running to tell me in the console, I want to output if my value is truthy or falsy. I want to output to the console. So, and I actually want a function that will do this. I want a function that will take in a value and output to the console if my value is truthy or falsy. That's my objective right now. So Kim, how can I get kind of the bare bones? How can we call this stubbing out a function? How can I just start just writing like the bones of this function? What's my first word?
Function.
That's a good one, yeah. What comes next?
Output?
What?
Is there an output function? I don't know.
We have to name our function. So what's a good name for this one, Daniel? Are you muted?
Sorry, I need a pass for now.
Okay. Ryan, what's a good name for this function?
True or false?
Sure. I'll just call it truthy or falsy, just to be a little more pedantic. Okay, what comes next in our function definition? We're building this function. Sydney.
The parameter or arguments.
Yeah, so we have parentheses, and then we'll come back to that because right now we're just stubbing it out, right? And then our curly braces ends it. So right here, is this a function definition or are we running a function, Monica?
It's a function definition.
Yeah, so we'll say we're defining a function. How do I invoke this function? I know it's empty and doesn't do anything, but I like to just invoke it right away, just so we can play with it.
Just call it truthy
Sure.
or falsy with the parentheses.
Yep, exactly. We see nothing in our console, but that's normal. Okay, so this is like kind of stubbing out a function, although probably stubbing includes your parameters. So I gave it away. What goes in here? What goes in the parentheses? Alexander.
Whatever your parameters or arguments are going to be.
Yep. So for this function, does it make sense to have any input?
I'm not sure. I feel like the answer is yes.
I want a function that will take in any value and output to the console if the value is truthy or falsy. Yeah, so we are going to take in a value.
Would it be the 345 or would it be truth or false?
Yeah, eventually, but we actually don't need to kind of think about that right now. But eventually it will be that. But all I need right now is a name, a label. So what's a good label for any value, basically?
A, B.
A?
Value.
Okay, value, sure. Yeah, either anything works. Maybe even X works, even though usually that would not be a good name. Okay, and just to see, for a sanity check, I'm just going to console.log value. I like to do this when I'm first wiring up. So now I want to pass in any value. What's any value I can pass in as an argument here, Jazz?
1, like the number 1.
Sure. That's a good argument. So now when I press save, what should I see, Victor, in my console, if everything's correct? We're invoking this function with the number 1. So we're inputting it with the number 1.
So you should see 1.
Yep. Yeah. Okay, so this is wired up and working correctly. Now we can think about our objective a little bit. So how can we determine if a value is truthy or falsy? And this might be a little tricky, so open to the class.
Can do an if statement.
Yes. That's what I would do.
If parentheses value I guess equal to true. Equals to true.
Okay, we can start there. Sure. What do you want to do if it's equal to true?
Return brackets and then return.
Here's an important distinction. Within a function, return versus console.log. So these are very different things. Return will output. And console.log will just write to the console. So here I actually said I want to output to the console. So I don't want to return because that's going to be different. I want to do what?
Just console log then.
Your mic's a little low.
Console log. Value or
Okay, so ideally, if your logic is right, is one truthy or falsy the value?
True.
One is truthy. So what should we see when we run this code if your logic is correct?
This value is true.
Okay, so we don't see that. Why not?
Is it because it doesn't have like a second argument? Because the one wouldn't equal like to true. Like it's doesn't have.
So when we run this,
Wait.
what is value equal to?
1.
Is the number 1 equal to the Boolean true?
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, it's not.
It's not.
I see. Yeah.
So what do we have to do?
Max, would
Uh-huh.
strict equality versus loose equality make a difference there, or?
I think it no, I don't. I think it would still not work. I don't want to get too into this because I told you guys I don't want to use loose equality, but I don't think. Oh, it did work. Okay. But again, I want to just stay with the most modern version of JavaScript and simplify our lives with strict equality, ES6, if it's okay, because that's a whole deep topic. Yeah. Yeah, and I'm surprised that actually works. But again, that's going to be its own whole lecture to explore. Anyway, the number 1 is not strictly equal to the Boolean true, right? Different data types, different values. So here, what can we do?
Just wanted to keep the equals, then I guess we could say 1. 1 equal to 1.
Okay, that's fine. So we could do this, and then we'll see this value is truthy. But give me another truthy value, Roman. How about your name, Roman? Is that truthy?
No.
It's truthy, yeah.
I would.
But it's not equal to the number 1. So we don't see anything in our console. Other guesses?
Can you do like if value is not equal to 0?
Yeah, we could. If value is not equal to 0, and Roman is truthy, that's great. But can anyone break this? Can anyone think of a way to break this logic? Because I can.
If it's null,
Yeah, what if it's null? We know null is truthy or falsy. Which one?
Falsy.
Falsy.
Yeah, but we're seeing this value is truthy, so we're being lied to.
Can you just keep the value and get rid of everything else?
Yeah, exactly. So this is going to be the same logic as yesterday, right? With our while loop. So this by itself will just be coerced, just because of the nature of the if statement, to a Boolean. And then this should work for us. And I'm just going to finish the logic off by saying this value is falsy. So let's test it. Give me a truthy value, Aaron.
Truthy value. So would you put a name?
You can put anything you want. Just give me any truthy value.
Aaron.
Yep. Did that work? Yep. Okay, give me a falsy value we haven't covered. David ducked away at the perfect instance. Renata.
Empty string.
Yeah, good one. And we got this value is falsy. So, yeah, so it's working. What questions do you have on this one? Okay. And then finally today, I thought we'd start building a calculator together. So I want my calculator. Let's start off with just adding and subtracting. So I want to build a calculator app that prompts the user what operation they would like to perform. Add, subtract. We'll start there, but maybe who knows what we'll do. And then it does it, right? But let's start there. Let's just get, how do I, when I press save on this program, how do I get a prompt going to ask me what operation I'd like to perform? David?
You just do prompt.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then whatever message, what action do you want to perform?
And how can I save the result of what the user typed in here? Zach?
Before the prompt, would you put let operation equals?
And then if they say add, I want to invoke a function called add. We haven't defined it yet, but we'll do that later. So if they say add, I want to invoke a function called add. That's what I want to do. Ronald?
Sorry. Just put the plus sign. I looked away for a second, but yeah, I'm not really sure.
So operation is storing what they put in, add, subtract, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm saying on line 51, I just want to say if operation is equal to add, then invoke a function called add.
Oh, I see. Okay. So we're just creating a statement. So if we do that, then yeah, just create an if conditional, and then within the condition, I guess it's going to be stored under operations. So we can do operation triple equals, I guess the string add, add, and then if that's true, let's invoke it for the function by calling, well, I guess we didn't define it yet, but if we do, just type add and then a set of parentheses. Oh.
Awesome. And then here, so Ronald, are we invoking a function here or defining a function?
We're invoking or calling the function with the set of parentheses.
Yep. Yes. And then I want to define the function add. And I want add to ask for two numbers and then return, not console.log. What do I want to do here? Yeah, I can have it. Yeah, that's fine. I can have it return. That's fine. And then return the sum. So let's get started stubbing out this function. How can we get started on that, Lizzie? What's our first word?
Add.
Nope. Yeah.
Function?
Yep. And then add is actually a good second word. Yep. And then what comes next, Kevin, to define a function here?
Parameters.
Our parentheses are parameters, correct? And then, Kevin?
The value.
Yeah, but we'll come back to them in
Or
a sec.
nothing,
Our
maybe?
curly braces. Yeah. Okay, let's think about this. This is a little tricky, actually. Are there any inputs to this function?
You need
Number.
to add.
I feel like I want to do the logic to ask for the numbers in this function, but there's flexibility here. So let's say I want to ask for the numbers in here. But again, you could do different things. So how can I ask the user for the first number? Roman?
You could just do a variable prompt the same way we did on line 48.
Okay. What do I type? What do I call the variable?
Let I guess ask question.
Let ask?
Question? Yeah, question I guess. First question.
Well, so we're asking for two numbers so that we can add them together. So we can do better than the label ask. Yeah, but this one is like number one or yeah, first number.
Prompt. Parentheses. What is the first number?
Okay. And then how can we ask for the second number, Alex? Robinson?
And do another let number 2 prompts. What is the second number?
And then from this function, now this is kind of the new interesting part. How can we output the result, the sum? Francis?
Return num1 plus num2.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so we did all this work. What's going to actually happen when I run this? I click add, and it goes here. What is the first number? And I put 1. And then I go here and put 3. And then I see nothing. Why don't I see anything?
You didn't print anything to the console.
Nothing's being printed to the console here. Nothing's being printed to the console here. But if I want to verify this worked, I can wrap this in a what? This invocation I can wrap in a what? To see it in the console.
Console log?
Yeah. I can just wrap this in a console.log. And now when I run this again and say add 1 and 1, oh, we have a good bug here. This is a fun bug. Why do we see 11? Or what we think is 11, but isn't actually.
Because it was a string and a string.
Yeah, we concatenated 2 strings. How can we fix this bug?
Do we have to turn the strings that are prompted into numbers?
Yeah, what's the easiest way we can do that?
Number, capital N.
Yeah, I'm going to be lazier and just put plus. I don't want to type number.
Oh, does that work as well?
Yep. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
So let's try again. Let's click add. Let's do 1 and 1. And we get 2. Okay, very nice. But now, I don't want to just console.log this. I want it to appear in an alert box. So how can I save the result of this? Well, how can I actually save the result of this in a variable called result? Sarthak? On line 54 there, I invoked the function add. I want to capture what gets outputted in a variable called result.
So we'll declare the variable here like let result, and inside we put that function invocation.
No, we don't have to put console.log here. We just need an equal sign.
Yeah.
And now to get it to alert, we can do what? We can do alert
Yes.
The result is result. Okay, let's see if this works, right? Add 2, 3, we get 5. The result is 5. What questions do you have on that? Okay, let's do, yeah, go ahead.
For line 54, where it's let result equal add, could you just, instead of putting add, input num1 plus num2, and then do like a console log to display it like num1 plus num2 is equal to result?
Like this?
Yeah.
Okay, we can't, but the question is, why can't we? What will we see in our console first of all when we try to run this? And the hint
They're
is
not
scope.
defined.
Yeah, we're gonna get a reference error. We don't have access to num1 and num2 from these curly braces because they only exist here. We can try to run it, but
Can I ask a question, Max?
Uh-huh.
If in the function add you made num1 and num2 consts, would they then be able to be accessed outside that function?
No, const and let both have the same block scoping. Yeah, makes no difference. Okay, so let's do the same thing, but for subtract. So what has to change here? I want to do, if the user puts subtract, I want to now call a function called subtract. So what has to change on this line? Ronald?
You have to just, if you want a function called subtract, or if you want to do it, just put subtract for the value. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just change this to subtract and the function invocation to subtract. And I don't have to change the result is. That sounds fine, right? And then here, I'm going to copy this and paste it. What should I change the name to, Lizzie? If I want it to subtract.
Subtract.
Yep. And then what should change here in this return?
It should be subtract instead of the addition sign.
So minus. And now, let's see if this works. Whoops. Subtract. And I do 4, and I do 1, and I got 3. Okay. But do you see how when I pressed OK, the program just terminated? I want it to keep on, it's a calculator. I want it to keep on saying, what operation would you like to perform? Again and again and again. How can I do that?
Would you need a while loop?
I would, yeah, exactly. Where can I put that while loop and what goes in it?
Could you put something really stupid like true equals true?
Sure. Or just while true. That's fine. And then what code do I want to repeat again and again and again?
Is it the operation?
Yeah, it is the operation. But I think we also will need our if statements. Will we need our functions, though, is the question. No. So let's just move this code into an infinite loop and see what happens. So I'd like to add 1 and 1. I got 2. I'd like to add 1 and 2. I'd like to subtract 3 and 1. Okay, but now like I'm done. I did all my taxes or whatever I needed to do. And now we have an infinite loop that I'm stuck in. So this is awesome. We did our objective, right? But I need some way to like quit. Can anyone think of a clever way? Like, how can we tell it we're done?
Put in something that's false.
Yeah. So, I mean, will this ever be false the way it's written? This Boolean?
No, always be true.
Yeah. So let me change this. Let me propose. Well, does anyone have a proposition?
Can you add a break statement to the loop?
Oh, yeah, we could. I didn't even think of that. What would you like to do? I think that'll work.
You could have another question. Would you like to end the program?
Yeah, add, subtract, or quit. And then here I can just say what? Whoops. Here at the end, I can say what? What were you thinking, Ryan?
If operation equal with the quit curly bracket
and break.
Okay, let's try this. This is fun. I didn't think of this solution. That doesn't look right. This is the old one. Oh, because we have an infinite loop. Okay, so add 1, 1, add 1, 2. Okay, I'm done. I want to quit. And it worked. I broke. I mean, this actually works. This is actually fine. But the solution I was thinking we would explore is setting a variable like a Boolean, like is running, and then while is running, and then if they ask to quit, changing the variable to false. Would be maybe more traditional, but both works totally fine. All right, any questions on that? Okay, the last thing I have to show you is kind of completely separate from all of this. And that's math.random you're going to need today. So if you ever need a random number in JavaScript, you have this built-in math.random, and it will give you a number from, God, I always forget this, and I just looked it up. 0 to 1.
But not including 1.
Yes, there it is. It can include 0, but never will include 1. And then the question is, well, what good does this do us? We're just getting a decimal number. So what if my objective is I want to console.log a random number from 1 to 10. How can I modify this? That's the question. Right now it's just 0 to 1, but not including the 1.
Plus 1.
Well, if I do plus 1, then I'm just getting 1.2, 1.4. But on the right track.
Math.random and create math.for, I think.
Yeah, so first we're going to times it by the number we want. So like 10. But now we have a decimal number and I want a whole number. So now we have another built-in feature in math, a method called ceiling, which will round it up. And now I believe I have a random number from 1 to 10. Any questions on math.random?
Why ceiling versus floor?
It depends what you want to do. Do you want to round up or round down?
So it's a personal preference then?
Well, it says what your application needs to do preference. Here I said I want a random number from 1 to 10. If I wanted a random number from 0 to 9, what would change here? David?
Oh, the 10.
No, I could just put floor. And now I think it'd be 0 to 9 random number. But I have to comment all this code out again. And quit. So now I think we have 0 to 9 because we switched it to floor. Yep. So it depends what your app needs to do, what you want to do. You'll use both. Okay, I think that's all the fundamentals you need for the workshop today. Any final questions? Whoa, a lot of chat. All right, if you think of anything while I'm doing breakout rooms, just shout it out.
Is there a shortcut you use to comment everything out like that so quick?
Yeah, highlight everything, and if you're on Windows, Control /, and if you're on Mac, Command / I believe.
Just assumed if you highlighted everything and clicked it, it would just get rid of it all.
Yeah. Yeah. Another fun one is if you hold Alt, you can move lines. Another one is if you press Control X, it cuts a line. Control V, paste it. If you want to copy lines, Control C and then Control V. If you want to undo, Control Z. There's some basic ones you should definitely try to absorb. And then also you should not be looking at the keyboard. You should really try to get in the habit of not looking at the keyboard when you type. It'll just make you so much quicker. It is painful though in the beginning.
Hey Max, I have an analogy or like for parameters and arguments. I don't know if a lot of people have trouble with that.
Okay,
but
what is it?
When I was learning back then, they would always be like, A for arguments, actual values, and P for parameters, placeholder values. So you pass actual values into placeholder values to the parameters.
Yeah, that's good. I like it. It works.